I'm gonna wait for rates to come down. I'm gonna wait for prices to drop. I'm gonna wait until the market stabilizes. I'm going to wait until I feel more ready. I hear some version of this every single week, and I get it. Buying a house is scary. It's the biggest financial decision most people ever make. And when rate and prices are high, maybe the headlines of where things are heading are confusing, waiting feels like the safe choice. But here's what almost nobody talks about. Waiting has a cost, a real, measurable, mathematical cost that most people never calculate. And in many cases, that cost is far higher than whatever you think you're saving by sitting on the sidelines. Today, I'm gonna show you exactly what waiting actually costs year over year. We'll look at rent, appreciation, equity, and opportunity costs. By the end of this video, you'll be able to make a real decision based on real math, not fear. I'm Webb. I'm a mortgage loan originator, and this is the conversation I wish more people had before they spent another year waiting. Let's start with the most obvious cost of waiting, rent. Every month you wait to buy a house, you're paying rent, and that rent is 100% gone. You get nothing back. No equity, no ownership, no tax benefits, and you're technically paying down your landlord's mortgage for them. Let's put some numbers on this. If you're lucky, right now to rent in Clark County, Washington is somewhere around $2,000 a month for a decent 2 or 3 bedroom. If you wait 1 year, that's $24,000 in rent. Wait 2 years, $48,000 in rent. Now, I know what you're thinking, but if I buy a house, I'm paying a mortgage, which is basically the same thing. Not exactly. Here's the difference. When you pay rent, 100% of that money goes to your landlord. When you pay a mortgage, part of that payment goes to interest, yes, but part of it goes to principal paydown. That principal portion goes directly towards building equity. It's money that stays yours. It builds over time. It's forced savings that you get back when you sell or that you can tap into with a HELOC or a refinance in the future. In year one of the typical 30-year fixed mortgage, you'll pay around 15% of your P&I payment towards principal. That's money you're keeping, not giving away. So the real comparison isn't rent versus mortgage payment, it's rent, which is 100% gone, versus the portion of your mortgage that goes to the interest and taxes, which is more like 75 to 85% of your payment. Of course, over time, more of that payment shifts to principal paydown. But every year you wait, you're choosing to give away another $24,000 instead of keeping a chunk of it for yourself. Now let's talk about the cost that really sneaks up on people, home price appreciation. A lot of people waiting to buy are hoping prices will drop. They're waiting for a crash. They've been waiting since 2022 when rates first spiked. Here's what actually happened. Prices didn't crash. In most markets, they kept going up, just slower than before. Nationally, home prices have appreciated an average of 3 to 5% per year over the long term. In hot markets like the Pacific Northwest, it's often been higher. Let's do some math. Say you're looking at a house that costs $500,000 today. You decide to wait a year, hoping prices drop or rates improve. But prices don't drop. They go up 4%, which is a fairly conservative estimate. That $500,000 house is now $520,000. You just lost $20,000 of purchasing power. That house didn't change, you didn't change, but the price moved, and now you need a bigger down payment and a bigger loan to buy the same house. Wait 2 years at 4% appreciation, that house is now worth $541,000. Now add that to the rent you paid while waiting. 3 years of rent at $24,000 a year is $72,000, plus $62,000 in price appreciation, that's $134,000. That's the real cost of waiting 3 years. And that's assuming rates didn't go up, which would make it even worse. Here's a cost or an opportunity cost most people never even think about: the equity you didn't build. When you own a home, 2 things build your equity. First, it's the principal paydown like we talked about earlier. Every month you own a little more of the house. Second, appreciation. If the house goes up in value, that gain is yours. So let's flip our example. Instead of waiting, imagine you bought that $500,000 house 3 years ago. With 4% annual appreciation, your house would now be worth $562,000. That's $62,000 in equity from appreciation alone, money in your pocket that you can access through selling, refinancing, or a home equity loan. Plus, over 3 years of mortgage payments, you've probably paid down another $20,000 to $25,000 in principal, depending on your rate and loan amount. So instead of being out $134,000 from waiting, you'd have $85,000 or more in equity. That's a swing of over $200,000 in net worth in just 3 years. This is what I mean when I say waiting has a cost. It's not just about what you're paying, it's about what you're not building. Every year you rent, someone else is building equity with your money. Every year you don't own, you're missing out on appreciation that could be yours. The market doesn't wait for you to feel ready. Now let's address the elephant in the room, but I'm waiting for rates to drop. I hear this constantly, and I understand the logic. Rates were 3% a few years ago. Now they're 6-something%. It makes sense to wait for them to come back down, right? Here is the problem with that logic. First, nobody knows when rates will drop or if they will or how much they will. Economists have been predicting rate drops for 2 years now, and they've been mostly wrong. Rates are driven by inflation, unemployment, the bond market, Federal Reserve policy, global economics, factors that are basically impossible to predict. Second, even if rates do drop, here's what happens. Demand surges. When rates dropped in 2020 and 2021, buyers flooded the market. Multiple offers on every house, bidding wars, prices spiked. So yes, you might get a lower rate, but you might pay $50,000 more for the house because you're now competing with everyone else who was also waiting. Third, and this is the key point, you can refinance your interest rate. You cannot refinance your purchase price. If you buy a house today at 6.5% and rates drop to 5% the next year or two, you can refinance. Your payment goes down. Great. But if you wait a year and the house costs $40,000 more, that $40,000 is locked in forever. You can't refinance your way out of a higher purchase price. This is why the saying exists, date the rate, marry the house. I know it's cheesy, but it can be true. The rate is temporary, the house and its price is permanent. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying everyone should buy right now no matter what. There are legitimate reasons to wait. If your credit score is below 620 and you can realistically improve it by 50 to 100 points in 6 months, waiting may make sense. A better score means a better rate, potentially saving you hundreds per month. If you don't have enough saved for a down payment and closing costs, waiting while you save makes sense. Buying with too little cushion puts you at a financial risk. If your job situation is unstable or you might relocate in the next year or two, waiting may make sense. Buying and selling within a short window usually costs money. If you're going through a major life transition like a divorce, a job change, or a health issue, waiting until things stabilize may make sense. These are all legitimate reasons to pause. They're strategic, they're specific to your situation, and they have a timeline. You're not waiting indefinitely, you're waiting for something concrete to change. So here's the real question you should be asking yourself. Not should I wait, but what am I waiting for? The best time to buy a house is when you can afford it, when you plan to stay at least a few years, and when it makes sense for your life. Not when the market is perfect, because the market is never perfect. People who bought in 2008 thought they bought at the worst time ever. 10 years later, their houses have doubled in value. People who bought in 2020 thought they had overpaid. 3 years later, they have 6 figures in equity. Time in the market beats timing the market. That's true for stocks, it's true for real estate too. Look, I know this is a big decision and I know it's scary. I'm not here to pressure you into buying before you're ready. But I am here to make sure you're making that decision with real information, not just fear of rates or hope for a crash that might never come. If you want to run numbers for your specific situation, see what waiting 1 or 2 years would actually cost you compared to buying now, let's talk. There's a link in the description. Schedule a free call with myself and my team. We'll look at your budget, your goals, your timeline, and if waiting is the right move, I'll tell you. But if it's not, I want you to see the real math so you can make the best decision that's actually best for your future. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.